So we are in review session, the optional drop-in review session on Friday morning, and we are looking at the Chapter 19 problem. So this problem relates to allocation of support department costs. And the question that has been asked is related to this portion where we're using the reciprocal approach to allocating those support departments. As you know, this part is not specifically on the exam, but it is the extra credit problem, not this one, but the reciprocal approach is what's in the extra credit problem. So we're given information about 4 separate production departments and 2 support departments. And the 2 support departments are going to be allocated to the 4 production departments based on maintenance is based on number of hours worked. It tells us right here. And the administration department then is allocated based on number of employees. So the first thing we're asked to do is to determine the proportional usage of each support department by the other departments where it's allocated. So as we said, maintenance is going to be allocated based on hours worked, and we'll be allocating maintenance to administration and the other 5. So I'm just filling in the amounts, the hours worked by maintenance for those other departments. So administration is 10,692. And I'm just going down the list, and from the table of given information, filling in those hours. Grab my calculator here. So then we need a total for these hours. You'll notice we're not including the maintenance hours worked because we're not allocating maintenance to itself. So go ahead and total those. I got 73,060 hours. If you didn't get that same number, speak up, because
Yeah, I actually had 89,100.
I had 89,100 as well.
Okay, that's probably just me not adding correctly. And you didn't include the maintenance hours, right?
It says it's right.
Okay. So I probably did just hit the wrong button on my on my calculator. So then to calculate our percentages, we're going to take each department and divide by the total. And it does not say how to round that. So it may be that none of these need rounding. And if we've done all of these correctly, we should have accounted for 100%. So everybody okay with those?
Yes.
And then we're going to allocate the administration department based on the number of employees. So again, we're not going to include the employees from the administration department because we're not going to allocate its costs. Whoops. We're not going to allocate its costs to itself. And we'll go ahead and get the percentages for those as well. So with this, we are then ready to set up our formulas for finding how to allocate the maintenance total and the administration total. So we have our maintenance department costs here of $205,600. So we know that's going to be our starting point, but we're going to allocate to the maintenance department 15% of the administration cost. And we're getting that right from this table. So in addition to those direct costs, we're going to take 15% of the administrative costs. Because they have 15% of the employees, they use 15% of the administrative services. Does that part make sense? And then the direct costs for administration are $248,600. But we're going to allocate from the maintenance department, we're going to allocate some of that cost to administration, and that's 12% of the maintenance costs are going to go to administration. All right. So everybody has those two formulas. We should be able to substitute in either direction. So we should be able to substitute this. Let me get my annotate up here. So we could take, and we know that A equals this. So we could take this whole thing and plug it into the first equation for A. We should also be able to take this and plug it into the second equation for M. The problem is in the software, if you do it, if you round too much, it will give you the wrong answer. So, and I've seen that happen where every step has been done correctly, but because of the way they were substituted and then rounded, it didn't match exactly with what the software was looking for. So we need to be careful about that. Unfortunately, from a math standpoint, either way should be perfectly fine. So I'm going to start with the equation for M and substitute into that equation and hopefully avoid the rounding issues. So I'm just taking the equation that we have for M, but rather than using A, because we can't solve an equation in two variables, I'm going to take that second equation and plug that whole thing. I'm putting it in brackets or in parentheses. I'm going to plug the whole thing into the first equation. So now we're going to follow order of operations, PEMDAS. And so the first thing we want to do is get rid of those parentheses. The way we're going to do that is to distribute the 15% to each of the terms inside the parentheses. I'll leave that alone. 15% times 248,600 times 15% is 37,290.
Well, you did 15% times 248,600 and then times 15% again.
Nope, just once. No.
Oh, okay.
No,
Thought
I
you
know
said
I said it
twice.
twice because I hit on my calculator and then it didn't pick up the 2, so I had to basically start my equation over again. I thank you for clarifying that. I did not mean to say it twice. It was because of the way I was saying it as I was plugging it into my calculator.
Yeah, because I'm one of those ones that are not good in math at all.
Yeah. But you keep working at it, and that's what counts. So then we take the 15% and multiply by the 12% M. So 15% times 12% is 0.018. And so now we've gotten rid of those parentheses. So now we want to combine like terms. So I want to get the M's on the same side of the equation. The easiest way to do that is to subtract this 0.018 M from each side. So if we take one M and we subtract 0.018 M's from it, we're left with 0.982 M's. And then we can combine the constants. Combine those two numbers on the right-hand side. Good so far?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay. And then again, we want to get M by itself. So it's M times 0.982. So we need to do the opposite and divide each side by 0.982. So we take 242.89 by 0.982. And the answer will need to be rounded. So 247,342. 247,342.
All right, so now that I know how to figure that out, I can do the other problem unless you need to do it to move forward. Do you need to do it to move forward?
Let's see. So we have M. Yep. So in order to do the next part, we definitely need to fill in this, but this part's pretty simple. Now that we know what M is, we can take that dollar amount and plug it into this equation to get A.
Okay.
So it would just be A equals 248,600 plus 12% of that 247,342.
Oh, wait, so you did 248,600 plus 247,342
Times 12%.
times 12%.
I'm going to put that on the screen.
A equals. Thank you.
If you want to just check those numbers and make sure we don't have a rounding issue. I know in the past this is the problem that created an issue with rounding.
Let me see.
Those are the numbers that I have.
Okay, that's good.
Yep, it worked out for me
Or
too.
actually, sorry, for A, I have 278, 281.
278,
Yeah,
280. Okay, and
Oh yeah, for A.
278, 281, and that's because, again, it's related to the rounding. I'm 100% sure because I've seen it and it's creates a bit of an issue.
I was not doing anything like that, by the way. For hours, I was like sitting here trying to calculate before I messaged you. I was like,
Oh.
I was not even doing anything that you just did.
Okay, well, good. I'm glad that we're going through this then. Oh, yeah, okay. I think it's me in my new calculator not knowing how to use it. Because I just did it again and I got that same answer, 278, 281.04. So, okay, good. I just don't want to click check my work because then I'm going to have all those gray boxes messing up my screen. So, but this is the formula to find it. And I apparently just did the calculation wrong. I do better with an adding machine. That's what I'm used to, having the 10 key calculator. Using this foolish thing is just not apparently very easy for me for some
You're talking
reason.
about old school, huh?
Yeah. So, all right. So do you need this table? Are you stuck on this table as well, or?
So I got a cross department cost, and then once I got to maintenance. So I completed all of department cost.
Okay, and then, all right. So I'm going to have to fill this in.
Do you want the number?
Okay, so we've filled in the first 3 lines of this section using the information that was given up at the top. And then we're going to actually allocate the maintenance. So we know that the amount we're allocating for maintenance is the 247,342. That out here. So right here, 247,342 is the amount we're going to allocate for maintenance. And for administration, we're going to be allocating this. So 278,281. And so in this table, I'm going to just enter those numbers. This is how much we're going to allocate out of maintenance, 247,342. And administration, we're going to allocate out to 78.
You forgot the 4 in the.
Oh, thank you. Typo. Whoops. 247. Thank you, Seth. 247,342. And we're going to allocate those based on the percentages that we calculated in these tables. So for maintenance, we're going to allocate 12% to administration. So we start with maintenance, the total cost of 247,342, and find 12% of that, and we're going to round to the nearest whole dollar, it says. So 29,681 is 12% of that total. And we're just going to do that same thing for each one of the production departments. So we have the percentages right here in this table, and we're going to use those percentages to allocate to each one of the production departments. And I'm going to pause the video and let you try that on your own. Okay, so we finished allocating the maintenance line based on this total all-in cost. That includes the direct department cost plus the allocation that we're going to get from the administration. And that's the next line. So we're now going to, for this next line, take this dollar amount that's the total for administration, including the direct cost plus the amount that's allocated from the maintenance department. We're going to take this total and allocate it out to the other 5 departments using these percentages in the second table. So for example, the maintenance department has 15% of the employees. So it's going to get 15% of that administrative cost, $278,281 times 15%. And then we need to round to the nearest whole dollar. I got 41,742. And so we're going to go ahead and do that for each one of the 4 production departments based on those percentages from above. And then the last step will be to add and find the total allocated, your total cost for the departments after allocation. And what you should see is that the support departments are now fully allocated. So when we add this department cost plus the allocation from maintenance and administration, when you add those up, you'll get 0. There's no cost left in the maintenance, no cost left in the administrative department, but each one of the production departments will have its direct costs plus the allocations from the 2 support departments. And so it's going to be the same total cost, but all of the costs from maintenance and all of the cost for administration has been moved over onto those production departments. And I'm going to pause the recording to allow you to fill in the rest of that table. And so now we've completed that table, fully allocating out the administrative costs. And if you were to go back now and add these 4 production department costs here at the bottom, which include the allocations from maintenance and administration, you would see that the total of those 4 is exactly the same as the total of this line, the department cost line, when we had them all in separate departments, including the support departments. For this last section then, you're taking the final department costs from here for the, starting with the log yard. So the final department cost for log yard was $421,762. And you are going to use the information from up here about weightings to assign these costs. So let me see if I can say this more clearly. The log yard produces both hardwood and softwood. And we need to take the cost of the log yard and assign it to the hardwood and softwood. So we're looking up here where it tells us hardwood produces 300,000 board feet and softwood produces 900,000. So we'll put those in here, 300 and 900. And we could actually go down the list and put those in, 300 and 900.
Actually, the hardwood for the milling is to be 600.
Because I haven't read all the
Or-
direct.
Oh, wait, shoot, no. Sorry, it will be
Oh, after the
just
weighting.
a little bit
Yep.
later, yeah, sorry.
Yep, so it tells us, that's all right, because I obviously didn't read all the directions yet. So I very well could have skipped over something. The next thing says the milling department direct cost, direct labor and overhead per 1,000 board feet for hardwood is 2 times that of softwood. The remaining department costs are the same for both product lines. And so we're going to be putting in the milling department, a weight factor of 2 for hardwood and 1 for softwood. Yep. So then, but for the others, it's just going to be a 1-to-1 weighting. Oops, not 300. And our totals. So 300 divided by 1,200, the hardwood is 25% and the softwood is the other 75%. That same relationship is going to hold true for drying and for packaging. But for the milling, as Andrew was saying, because the hardwood is twice as hard, it takes twice as much effort. If you want to think of it, twice as much cost is going to be assigned to the hardwood as the softwood. And so then our totals here would be 1,500. So 600 out of 1,500 the hardwood is going to get 40% of the cost and softwood's going to get only 60%. So all the other ones are going to be the 25.75. So if the log yard fully allocated cost, including in maintenance and administration, is the 421,762 that we found right here, we're going to allocate 25% of that to the hardwood, rounding to the nearest whole dollar. And then we'll do 75% of that cost, whatever was remaining. You know, what I don't know is if they're going to round that one down, because otherwise we're going to end up with a different total here. Switch. I am going to hit the check my work button because it's not going to like that, I think. Yeah. So it actually, because of the rounding, is going to have us make that $1 more, which is kind of strange. These are both 50 cents. So we're rounding them both up. We're actually inflating the cost there. So do you feel comfortable with the rest of that table? We're going to be pulling in the total cost that we had calculated here for that department, and then assigning it to hardwood and softwood. Does that make sense so far?
I was muted.
That's
So you're saying, okay, so the final department cost is just what we're pulling from up, oh, my computer. All right. Like the 983, 819, the 650, 6493, we're just moving those down.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then we just like do the math. Oh, so we just take the 40%, multiply it by that 983 to get that
Yep.
total.
Exactly.
Okay.
The log yard should be the only one with that weird rounding situation.
Okay.
All the rest seem to be fine.
Yeah, and then following the directions, it says to round, but it gives me, you know, I'm one of those people who likes everything to come out to the penny. And so the fact that we are now allocating an extra $1, just, I don't really care for that. But it's the nature of rounding, so.
Would situations like that happen in, I'll call it real life accounting?
Yes, it could. Yes.
Okay.
It certainly could. And I would, so that's why you have to be careful about how early you round, because you can actually change the end result. And obviously that's not what you want.
And I think for the most part, I've taken this to quite a few places if I have to, so that I have the extra numbers while I'm doing the work and then just round to where they want at the end, and it seems to work out for the most part.
Yeah. I'm going to pause the recording for a moment so we can finish up this table. So we've now completed this table. We have fully allocated each one of the production department costs between the two products that are being produced, hardwood and softwood. As we move down then, we are told that they also produce wood shavings and sawdust. And so they get revenue of 100,000 for that. For some companies, they choose to use the revenue as an offset to the cost. So the revenue from these byproducts, they would just, rather than counting it as a separate revenue, they would subtract that from the total cost for the product. But for other companies, when it's a significant amount of revenue, and I would say $100,000 is a significant amount of revenue, then they decide to actually split that revenue and count it as actual revenue, not as a reduction in expense. And so what we're asked to do here is allocate the revenue based on the board feet of each product. So we already know it's 300 for hardwood and 900 for 900 for softwood, for a total of $1,200. And so that's, we already know 25 and 75%. Done that in the previous table. So we're going to allocate 25% of that byproduct revenue, the revenue from selling the wood shavings and sawdust. We're going to allocate 25% of that to hardwood and 75% to softwood.
That was pretty simple.
And then I'm just going to bring those dollar amounts down here. And it says that they're going to offset their cost. So total cost per product line, they're going to offset that with this byproduct revenue. So as I said, some companies will treat it as an offset to cost, and others will treat it as a separate revenue line. But they're going to treat it as an offset to cost, which I didn't know until I scrolled down and saw what this table looked like. Last thing we need to do then, this is just a summary of what we did here. And so, for example, in the log yard, hardwoods received $105,441 worth of cost. So all we are doing in this final step of the problem is taking this last column here of the cost allocations between hardwood and softwood and totaling or summarizing them down here. I'm going to pause the recording one last time to allow you to pull in those numbers from this allocation table. So we're taking just this final column, pulling in, separating out the hardwood numbers from the softwood numbers so we can get a total cost for each product line. And so we have allocated that byproduct revenue, and as I look at the totals, that $100,000 doesn't seem like such a big deal anymore compared to their total costs here of $2.5 million roughly. So rather than setting up a whole separate product line for their what they treat as byproducts, the wood shavings and sawdust, it's this tiny piece of their business, and really the only reason they're selling those is because they have to do something with them. So rather than setting up a new product line and having to do this allocation, not just to hardwood and softwood, but also to the byproducts, instead of having a separate revenue line and a separate cost line, what they're doing is taking these costs and assigning them or allocating them to each one of the product lines that are their main point of their business, to reduce their net cost. And so on their income statement, what you would see is the revenues from hardwood and softwood, and then the cost of goods sold would include these net costs. You wouldn't see a separate line item for these revenues, and you would not see, as we're making decisions about our business, we would not be making decisions based on what's best for the wood shavings and sawdust, because we're focused on our core business, which is hardwood and softwood, and the byproducts are just a necessary, sidelight, if you will. So I think we are now done with this problem. Any questions at this point?
No, it always makes so much more sense when I guess this class was helpful because it's like one-on-one.
Good, good, good.
Thank you.